Boys, you want to get better at the game, you want to understand what's going on in Yu-Gi-Oh! I, Stevie Blunder, am here to teach you the general 101 course. Welcome to Getting Smarter with Stevie. And the first topic on today's curriculum, we're gonna break down the entire EUWCQ. The EUWCQ was the first major event that happened after COVID was fixed in very large quotations. Let's get into the news. These are regional reports after Power of the Elements came out. The first week, we saw a ton of domination from Sprite and a lot of underperformance from what people thought would be the second best deck of the format, Tier Limit. The problem is that pure, it's just very RNG dependent because you need to hit multiple tiers, blah 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 blah. You get the idea. Tier Limit really did underperform and Sprite was really good, most notably because it was really consistent. Who would have guessed? A bunch of rogue decks also includes pure Punk, which is really nice because you get to go to like synchro bosses as well as Amazing Dragon. Sword Soul's just a consistent deck. Exo Sister is seen as the sort of evil swarm of the format because it has a lot of great applications and matchups against Sprite and Tier Limit because they both interact with the graveyard heavily. Eldritch piles are seen pretty good just because it's fucking Eldritch and God is dead, most notably with Branded Fusion. Math Mech is something that a lot of people are coping on. Blunder, it's Blunder, Dimension Shifter bottom text, and Morphtronic FTK. With Morphtronic Telephone, it basically got a 2-card FTK where if you put 2 telephones onto the board, you basically win the game. You just start yugioh, Cannon Soldier, Among Us. What else did we expect? We expected hand traps to be really bad, mainly because Tier Limit and Sprite did not lose to them. There were only like a couple of hand traps that actually were like good, but for the most part, hand traps are just completely miserable. You're basically hand looping yourself for free. Board breakers are really good. Stuff like Dark Ruin No More is expected to be really good. Droplets, Lightning Storm, whatever. Mystic Mine is still probably pretty good. I gotta love Mystic Mine. Deck realities. This is what actually happened. Sprite is really bad. If you guys saw the feature matches, everybody that was playing Sprite played into Nibiru. Really surprising considering Sprite has an in-archetype way to play around Nibiru. Everyone's maining for Sprite, everyone's siding for Sprite. They're playing a lot of really goofy stuff. Just a lot of targeted hate towards Sprite. Turns out, additionally, the end board is kind of bad. Problem was, it was very easily outable due to the abundance of hate for it, such as Lava Golem, such as Sphere Mode, such as Dark Ruler, you get the idea. It won 0 feature matches. I think it got featured 4 times and won none of them. It lost against ABC, which is the funniest part. Deck realities, part 2. Tier is the best deck. Tier was without a doubt probably the best deck going into this event. If you knew how to play combo Tier and you had the deck list for it, it was broken. It was absolutely broken. Some people were on Punk, everyone was on the Dangers who topped. It made the deck much more consistent and deadly because if you played Punk, you could go into Chaos Ruler, which is basically just another Kalos. The Dangers just basically let you extend into infinity, who would have guessed. Oh my god, Nessie is an Aqua. Oh. Super Poly into Garuda turns out to be absolutely insane, but we'll get into that a bit later. All you need to know is that Super Poly and Garuda put in work in this event. And you can play all sort of goofy mill targets. Milling just tiers can get better. If you play stuff like Galaxy Cyclone, you have an out for Mystic Mine. If you're playing Zephyros, you have follow-up. If you have Snow, it's Snow. What about Rogue? We have Rika Sun Avalon. Arguably, this was the sleeper deck of the format. I think the only people who placed well with it were like the Team Disciples people. And I think all of them topped, which is crazy. It had an amazing Sprite and Tier matchup, mainly just because Rika Princess and Rika Petal were just so good. Like, it's so crazy. Additionally, Ultrageist topped. Was it really Ultrageist though? Let's look at the Rogue flops though. There's a lot of bad ones, but let's talk about the 3 biggest ones. You have Math Mech. Its removal was basically horrible. If you don't know, Math Mech, their main form of interruption is super factorial into, I think Laplacian, one of their Xyzs. It sends a card from your opponent's hand on their field and a spell trap they control to the graveyard. What happens if you hit someone from the hand playing Tier Limit? Well, you let them go +4 for absolutely free. And that's exactly what Dinka Bui did in one of his feature matches. He replaced the tier player and let them go like +3. Exo Sister turned out to be really bad. It was way too weak to absolutely everything. Exo Sister just turns out to not be good. Who would have guessed? You can't really afford to get hand trapped or get your board broken by stuff like Dark Ruler on like your Break 8, etc. You get the idea. And Morphtronic FTK. It's like Tier Element without any payoff. It was crazy. Yeah, Exo Sister lost to every hand trap. It was crazy. Is this Altergeist or is this Mystic Mind stall? I'm not sure what this is. The more I look at this list, the more I hate it. Let's talk about the breakout cards of the format. We've got Kurikara Divincarnate. This was mainly played by Herman. Pretty good card, actually. Players that were playing it, they had an amazing board breaker versus Sprite if they played Dupe Frog. Because what you would do is if they summoned Dupe Frog off of the Totally Awesome, you would bait the Toad, and then you would just go Kurikara Divincarnate, like threaten battle phase, and then like force the Elf, and then you just like smack over the Toad, and then you just steal it, which is absolutely crazy. Super Poly plus Garura turns out to be absolutely broken. Turns out I was wrong about Garura. Way too good, way too generic, and it made Sprite just absolutely a huge joke. Basically, if you played Super Poly Garura, like you basically won. Then we have the Topologics. They were amazing removal bosses and super easy to trigger in tier. One of the main issues that tier had was that they didn't have a great way of clearing the board or getting high damage values out onto the board. And what people figured out is that you just play Zeroboros and Bomber Dragon. You had stuff like Hophanus able to trigger Zeroboros, same with Bomber Dragon. Additional breakouts included Appointer of the Red Lotus. This one is pretty obvious, but I just wanted to put it here. It was really broken as a sideboard card to snipe board breakers. So in like games 2 or 3, you would just Appointer their Dark Ruler no more, and if you could just like hit a starter if you really want to. You get the idea. Evenly matched up extremely well versus just about everything, because nothing except for Sprite was really ending on negates. And the first time you could just sort of like bait Toad with like a Desires or something. And the third one was Beat Cop from the Underworld and Mystic Mind. If you wanted to terrorize your opponent and show them a bad time, you would do this combo. Because basically what would you do? So basically the idea was you would like Mystic Mind your opponent, and then you would just keep giving it patrol counters with Beat Cop by just like tributing sprites or whatever, just over and over and over again. It was absolutely insane. Or you would just like Beat Cop tribute itself, put a counter on it. Oh, that was a play. Kind of silly. Card choice cringes. Ultimate Slayer. Ultimate Slayer is a decent sideboard card, but it is not as universally good that everyone originally thought. Turns out it wasn't really that good. It was okay. You saw a bunch of people play it in Top Cut. I think 2 of the 6 lists that we have so far were playing the Ultimate Slayer, but unfortunately, it just required too much space, and the extra deck in a format where every extra deck slot sort of counts is very gimmicky. It's extremely high investment in regards to the cards that you have to play. Every hand trap ever was really bad. Every hand trap was terrible. You do not play hand traps unless you were playing exactly Gamma to hit Sprite or Nibiru to hit like Tier Lament. Just don't play hand traps. Not even DD Crow was good. Now let's look at some unexpected consequences of the format. Even though Tier had a much better matchup against Sprite, they had really good back and forth. And because Sprite and Tier were so overrepresented as a result of this event, basically every single round would go into time. Wait a minute, chat. If people are going into time so often, that means time rules, baby. I love time rules. People mained and cited a ton of cards. You guys saw that earlier with Red Resonator. The most infamous of this was when Vlad, during his feature match, I think round 4, was Psychic Life Transferred. Gotta love time rules, you know? I think time rules are really cool. Event takeaways. Let's take a look at the things to take away from the event. Sprite is probably still good. Just too much hate for a known quantity in this specific event. Basically, too many people were playing too many cards to counter Sprite. Like we had Shifter, we had Dimensional Barrier, we had a bunch of Kaiju stuff, either Floodgates or Board Breakers. Tier Limit was probably only bad at regionals because none of the good players were playing, or they were just hiding their techs. When you look at regional lists for Tier, you'll notice that most of them are kind of built the same, where it's mostly just like pure, bunch of hand traps, some board breakers, whatever. None of them were really playing combo Tier. That was experimented with, but nothing crazy. Rika Sun Avalon, I think, is a bit overhyped for most players. Rika Sun Avalon kind of falls under the same category as like Crusadia Thunder Dragon, where it was the best deck of the format, but the only people who could actually pilot it efficiently over the course of a tournament were like good players, which is why only people from Disciples, which is pro Yu-Gi-Oh team, managed to top with this deck. Everyone is coping on rogue decks. This is not a deck, this is not unfortunately a format where rogue decks can succeed. If you want to play a rogue deck, you have to be playing something absolutely goofy. Not just like, oh, I flipped the Rivalry, because guess what? People are playing Rivalry and everything. Fuck Mystic Mind. All my homies fucking hate Mystic Mind. Mystic Mind turned out to be probably the best card of this format in regards to just player deck building. I mean, it got top 4. Who would have guessed that Mystic Mind made a top 4 of this event? Crazy. The even funnier thing is that people say like, oh my god, Mystic Mine is the out to Sprite boards. People were playing Mystic Mine in Sprite and Tier with the Beat Cop combo. It's so unfair.